The opinions expressed on the following audio program are solely those of the host and the guests. Burner Podcast is an independently produced, not-for-profit show and is not associated with the Burning Man organization or its subsidiaries. The views expressed are not representative of the entire Burning Man community and are presented here for entertainment purposes only. In short, calm the fuck down. It's just a podcast.
Hey, it's episode number 155, and it is 210 days till the man burns as of this particular recording. Dear listeners, the world is on fire. The world seems to be on fire in so many different ways. There's war happening in multiple fronts. There's the rise of some pretty unsavory characters into positions of power all over the world. When we started on the economy, misinformation, natural disasters, even within our own community, we seem to be tearing apart on so many topics, both within the Burning Man culture and out in the default world. We are struggling, and the world is on fucking fire in 1,000 ways, and it quite literally in some ways. The massive LA fires have devastated the entire region in a way that can only be described as surreal. Entire neighborhoods and towns are decimated, leaving so many without homes, without safety, without any sense of what comes next. And the picturesque city of Pasadena, where I lived for a couple of years, just a couple of years ago, sits right next to Altadena, which is one of the hardest hit areas. And that's really, honestly, that's putting it lightly. It's just I'm trying to write an intro script here. There isn't much left of Altadena, to be honest. I was in Las Vegas watching the news updates, and Sunset Boulevard is on fire, which was just unreal. And even though I know LA pretty intimately, my brain couldn't fully connect with what was happening. And I had to swing through LA and check in with my old roommates in Pasadena at our home, which we affectionately refer to as Philtopia. It's a breathtaking little oasis of lush greens with a hot tub and a koi pond. And it's populated by some of the most badass burners I've ever known. And I'm not going to bullshit you. I would have personally been absolutely devastated if I'd lost Philtopia. I've been to many places throughout the world, and Pasadena is one of my favorite places on the planet. It really is. And this home, this neighborhood, this town, I refer to Philtopia as my spiritual home. My addresses keep getting updated, but Philtopia is where my heart comes back to rest and reset. And I needed to go see it with my own eyes. Spoiler alert, Philtopia stands. That neighborhood has been spared. They're okay. But I needed to see it with my own eyes. And while we were sitting around the dinner table, we decided on a spur to record a conversation about that harrowing experience. Because it occurred to me that it may be cathartic for the residents of Philtopia. It wasn't until we started recording that it occurred to me that it was the catharsis that I needed. And as I hope it might be for you, this might be a moment where you can feel some support and feeling heard. You're going to be hearing the voices of Burner Podcast regular contributor Kim Perkins, along with her husband Phil, a.k.a. Ranger Philtopia, both of whom are BlackRock Rangers. 75% of Philtopia's current residents are Rangers, in fact. Kim and Phil share their story, of course, candidly. We're not here to make any grand stances about why or how, or some of the other extracurricular nonsense that the keyboard commandos are furiously shitposting about. Our place with this show, with this project, with this podcast has always been to zoom in on one very human part of this grand experience, this grand human experiment, and to connect on a very personal and emotional level. So you'll be hearing shortly from Kim and Phil. Their story, at least, as I said, has a happy ending, but so many others do not. So many folks have lost absolutely everything. before we dive into that conversation with Kim and Phil, where we're going to be reflecting on some of this, you're going to hear a call with Efron. Phil mentions Efron's efforts towards the end of the conversation, so we decided that you should absolutely hear from Efron directly. Efron, he's been doing really incredible work supporting folks directly impacted by the fires. So before we get into the Kim and Phil part of this episode, we're going to start with a 15-minute call with Efron and then dive into the chat with Kim and Phil. A lot of the reasons that we put this episode together was really honestly the show notes that are going to be attached to this. Kim, along with support from others in our amazing community, compiled a list of GoFundMe pages and fundraisers and direct ways that you can help, no matter where you happen to be in the world, if you have the means to. And we may even continue to add to that database after this episode goes live. So yeah, I'll be real with you. I'm always real with you. I've been struggling with the purpose of this show for like the past year, which was like part of the reason why it took a while to get new episodes out. And the world seems like it's a bigger mess than it's always been, and that might just be because we have more access to information than we ever have. But the world seems like a mess, and I'd been feeling pressure from various sides of various topics. Again, both within the Burning Man culture and in the default. Like, do we need to take political stances? Are we reporting hard journalism? Like, what is my duty? What is our obligation? What's our ethical code to follow here? I've been trying to figure that out and talking to a lot of people, talking to a lot of mentors. Does this show, does Burning Man itself, does this whole weird thing we do have to address every political, socio-economical, and geopolitical disaster? And I want to. I'm not one to shy away from difficult topics. But I guess the question is, would that be helping? I don't know. But this specific experience with the fire, it gave me, at least, the clarity on this topic that I had been searching for. And perhaps this might resonate with you if you've been asking those same questions yourself about our participation in this whole Burning Man experiment. This show, my job, it is and it always has been the same. Joy. We're not solving massacres and age-old religious conflicts and mass hysteria, brainwashing in these 1.5 hour chats. We're just, I don't think that's going to happen here. I'm here for one primary purpose, to remind you that you are never alone, that no matter what's happening in the world, no matter how much of it is out of our control, I'm standing quietly beside you, so that when you get a brief respite, when for just a short stint you're lucky enough to take a little break from what seems like a daily barrage of heartbreak and pain, this show is able to make you feel 1 or 2% better. That by the time you're done listening to an episode, you've got a smile on your face, even if it's short-lived. And at best, maybe listening to these chats reminds you of how fucking blessed we are to have this community. And maybe you're inspired to roll up your sleeves and get back out there, knowing that you've got me and this whole global messy family by your side. Because we're burners, and we'll figure it the fuck out. And even if the world implodes, we'll be the ones out there picking up the pieces, slapping together some shade, having a shot of whiskey, grinning, cracking jokes, making it work. Fuck your burn. That's what I think today's show really, that's what it really came out of it for me. And I'm really happy to share it with you. Today's episode is entitled Burn Perimeter. I go by Mr. Arash, even though nobody calls me Mr. Welcome to Burner Podcast.
On the first part of the journey, I was looking at all the life. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There were sand and hills and rain. The first thing I met was a fly with the balls and the sky with no clouds. The heat was hot and the ground was dry, but the air was full of sound. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no name.
All right, Efron,
Hey, how's it going?
dude. So I'm so glad I got you I got you on the phone here. Tell me where you are right now and what you've been doing.
So we have this warehouse in Santa Clarita Valley, where we receive a bunch of donations, and yet at the same time we receive a bunch of phone calls from people that have been displaced from their homes. We interview them, just because there's a lot going on. We've had scams already. There's a lot of things going on when
Yeah.
disasters like this happen. So we screen everybody that calls us. We
Can
ask
you-
them what they need, and we try to get everything they request from us as
Yeah.
same day or next day.
Beautiful. Can you give us
Yeah.
give the listeners like a geography point of where Santa Clarita is?
So Santa Clarita is north of the San Fernando. So Los Angeles, you had the Palisades fire. You've seen all these Malibu homes burning. And then you have at the Altadena fire, which is north of Los Angeles, past Palisades, past the San Fernando Valley. So it's kind of northeast where we're concentrating our efforts, just because Altadena is it's a impoverished neighborhood. There's a lot of Latinos like myself, and it's a historically African American neighborhood. Back in the day, you couldn't even buy a house if you were black and you wanted to live in LA. So Altadena was one of the first neighborhoods that were outside of the red line, what you call redlining.
Wow.
So it's a very historic neighborhood. As soon as I saw, what was going on in LA, I was in Puerto Rico for vacation because I'm from there, born and raised. And when I got there, I've gone through this before, where my island got destroyed by a hurricane, and very little, we had very little support from our government. So I took things into my own hands, helped my people out as much as I could, and I'm here to do the same.
Yeah.
So Altadena is kind of that area, Puerto Rico to me, where you see a lot of attention on the Palisades fire, and I knew there wasn't going to be as much on the Altadena area, so that's where we're concentrating our efforts.
Wow, that's amazing. What year was the hurricane in Puerto Rico where this started?
So in a couple of months, it'll be 8 years.
8 years. And that was when you the first time you got like a crew together, and I was reading a
Yeah,
little bit about that. Tell me
yeah.
about a little bit about that real quick.
So, and it's a long story, but long story short, I had to rescue my parents, and while they opened up the airport, because even the airport was destroyed, I started collecting supplies, just like if I were packing for Burning Man. I got Home Depot totes, and I started filling the black ones with the yellow lid that everybody uses, and just like I'm packing to the burn, batteries, dyed, baby formula, supplies, medical supplies, as much as I could get. I got in touch with Delta Airlines, who told me, you can check your bags for free. And I showed up in a Delta counter with 19 100-pound boxes, because they didn't tell me how many I could take with me. And they let me check them all in. And from there, my friends started buying flights all over the States just to get supplies into Puerto Rico through Delta Airlines. And then a couple of weeks after, I got in touch with a FEMA warehouse that was full of supplies that just couldn't get it to the people of Puerto Rico, because they could figure out, that everything was destroyed. So I started calling friends. I got with this girl. She was Miss Universe Puerto Rico. She helped, her and I started a disaster relief effort, and she had a lot of connections in the island as well. And so in 3 months' time, we ended up delivering more aid than the Red Cross, the U.S. Army, and FEMA, all of them combined.
That is amazing. The the
So,
the the, sec- the secret
yes.
sauce is relationships and community.
Yeah, exactly. Just
Yeah.
getting a lot. We had a lot of support from our burner friends in LA.
Mm,
And when the fire started, all of those friends were like, "Hey, are you gonna come over? What should we do? Let's do something." And obviously it's for me, it's like it's not just like repaying a favor
mm,
to my friends, but LA is my second home, and I feel, I just know I have the unfortunate gift of knowing where the cracks in our system are,
mm.
and I try as much as I can to address them. So the what we're starting is not as huge as what we did in Puerto Rico, just because we still have a functioning city around us.
Hmm.
Um, but we've taken care of over, I think yesterday the count was over 120 something families. Um,
Wow.
we have serviced 3 fire stations. 2 of them needed a whole bunch of gear, like camping gear, because they were sleeping in the dirt.
Mm.
Sleeping bags, sleeping mats, jet boilers, and then we've been dedicated to help the Altadena Sheriff Station, because they've been there since day zero with no running water.
Wow.
Um, and they just, they're short on supplies, and we've just been going there almost every day to bring him coffee, energy drinks, gear. Yesterday
Yeah.
we sent him a shipment of Dude wipes, which is like full body wipes.
Mm.
Those have been super popular with them, so we found a company that donated a whole pallet of Dude wipes, because they've been going through them like crazy. um
Yeah, you're doing some
and
next level fluffing over there.
yeah,
Yeah.
we've been, their morale has been super low, and since
Yeah.
we've been the first people who have offered them help, they've been, we're trying to cheer them up a little bit. Those guys are there 24/7. They're sleeping in their cars.
Ah,
uh and I know there's a thing about law enforcement in the US. But these were the guys that were rushing everybody out, along with the firemen, and they're
mm,
there to try and protect people's property, which is that, break-ins have been increasing since this whole thing started. So
sure.
yeah, those are people that for us it's worth helping out.
Yeah, that's
As well as the
incredible.
firemen from the 3 fire stations around that area: Fire Station 11, Fire Station 66, and then and yeah, that's what we've been up
Yeah,
to. Just
man,
just
that is
trying to help people out.
that's beautiful, man. You said, like a lot of the crux in the system. Can you call out like the biggest thing you notice that overwhelmingly you find people are completely out of the loop on?
Yeah. So the problem is when you're displaced, a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck. And while they start filling out a form, those forms are pages long. Not a lot of people, it's not easy for a lot of people to navigate through so many questions, so much
Mm,
paperwork, so many things they ask. And then you have to wait till help, till you get, let's say you don't even have work right now. You have to wait till FEMA deposits some money in your account, and you just lost your home, you lost everything, you're caught with absolutely nothing. You don't even Sometimes these people don't even have money to pay for 1 or 2 night or 3 night hotel while they get help
mm,
from FEMA. And yeah, and that's what we've been trying to fill those gaps as well. We paid for a few folks hotel rooms, and oh yeah, and by the way, I have to mention that I've been doing this whole thing with this lady named Debs Coran,
mm.
who's also Puerto Rican. Her and I worked together in Hurricane Maria, and she is the one who started everything from the beginning in this out of the Santa Clarita Valley.
Wow.
So yeah, so I've been joining her to do some more of what we did when we were in Puerto Rico.
Ah, that is beautiful,
Um,
man. Let me ask you this. So, to anybody who's listening, and consider that, you might have folks that are listening to this podcast like now while the fires are happening, and then you also have folks that might listen to this like a month or two later, 3 months later. What can people do to help and support your efforts immediately, and also what could they do in the long run, to help out if they listen
um,
to this later?
Yeah. So I'll be sending you a link to Deb's donation page, because
Hmm.
she's the one that handles all the donations. and allocate the money where, if somebody calls us, they need a bed, we'll buy it the same day, or we'll get it by next day. So she's the one that handles all of that. I'll give you a link to that, but we also need hands-on help, especially on weekdays. We're running from Monday through Saturday out of Santa Clarita Valley in a place called Mike and Nick's Tire Shop. They have a warehouse there that we're using. We're there from 11:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and we're short-handed on help on weekdays.
Okay.
So weekends as well, we'll take all the help we can get, but it's a very hands-on experience. You'll get to the warehouse, you'll sort, you'll get a family assigned, you pack everything up, clothes, toiletries, whatever they ask from us. And then if you also want, you can just load it in your car and deliver it straight to the people that are asking for help.
How can people get in contact with you directly if they want to help?
Yeah, if you wanna, they can call me. My phone number is 787-384-6669, and they can also call Debs. I think Debs is the best point of contact, so she's the one that organizes volunteers as well. Her phone number is 661-531-7515, 661-531-7515. She also has Venmo if you guys want to donate directly to her. It's at I am so DEBS. I am so Debs on Venmo.
Okay. Do you have a page, a landing page, or a link or anything we can include or share?
She's running everything out of her Facebook. I can also send you a link to her Facebook. I think the link to you find her as I am so Debs as well. We're not an organization. Organizations take time, just like what we did in Puerto Rico. Everybody asked us you should start a nonprofit, but I'm not. I don't do this for a job. I have my own company. I don't. I just know how to get things done real quick and find where the needs are and take care of them as much as we can. And once we're done with this, that's it. We're not, this is not our full-time job. So
okay. Yeah. So we'll make sure to get these links into the show notes, so that people can find you and connect with you that way if they happen to be like driving or whatever and they can't write it down.
yeah.
So we'll get on that in there. How's your self-care going? You taking care of yourself? You guys getting rest?
Good. The first week was crazy, just because I was doing a lot of runs till very late to all these first responders. But good. My friends were looking out for me. They were like, "You should get some rest." And things have slowed down a little bit, so I am getting some rest. But I think this is going to get worse before it gets any better. I've been past the barricades in the Altadena area, and once these people that have been staying in hotel rooms for over 2 weeks with kids, driving them nuts, they're going to want to go home, and there's no home to get back to. There's just, it's all devastation. Like you drive past those barricades and there's nothing. It's terrible. The air quality is terrible. The guys that are working out there 24/7, dry skin, just like you're on Playa. Super dry skin. My lips started breaking out. My skin started falling off. It's the air smells like shit. Like it's not. There's no that whole area is not livable, and I don't think it'll be livable anytime soon. And it's gonna be some people hear it, but they won't believe it until they see it. The whole area was just decimated. And once these thousands of people that lost their homes get to go to not get back to nothing, I think it's going to get a lot worse than even what those people experienced during the fire. So
no, it's impossible to grasp unless you're there. Man, let me tell you, thank you so much. Like this incredible work that you're doing, and I want to say with absolute certainty that I can speak on behalf of our entire community when I say we're just so fucking proud of you and appreciate you so much. And whatever we can do to amplify your voice and support you, we're going to do that. So thank you so much for all of this, man.
Thank you. Thanks for the interview, and thanks to the burner community. A lot of my burner friends have been helping us out with donations and with hands-on. And it's a community that I can always count on, and yeah, I love my burner friends.
Yeah, lots of love to you. Yeah, stay safe out there, man. We'll be in touch.
Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you. I mean, I've only been here for like barely 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So you're feeling a lot of like congestion and everything still?
Well, Phil is, I think. I've been pretty okay.
So, for more than a week, I've had this kind of like upper respiratory symptoms. My nose has been running nonstop, and I had a sore throat. In fact, my voice is like 90% back to normal now, but for a while there, I was almost like hoarse, and I noticed that my voice was sounding like I was. It basically sounded like I was a wreck. Like I've been smoking like 5 packs of cigarettes.
Yeah.
And
Actually,
and I've had this freaking cough now. So I'm actually kind of unclear. Do I have a cold? Am I having like an allergic reaction, similar to like if I was getting, if there was like, sometimes with these big winds, even if there's not a fire, I'll get some hay fever kind of symptoms, but they usually go away right away.
Yeah.
you know, this is a lot more like when after Burning Man, whenever you come back from the playa.
Like after coming back from the
you
playa.
usually are sick for a week from just respiratory
And
distress.
sometimes 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I get these coughing attacks, and I've been having the same symptoms, like my post-playa kind of upper respiratory distress, and even getting down into my bronchi, like bronchitis symptoms and stuff, like pain in the chest. And so
it's like playa lung.
I've been
It is
getting
playa
that.
lung.
It's like total playa lung without the playa. Yeah, so I've been having the same symptoms. Started a couple days after the fire.
Oh.
Right, didn't it? I mean, I think so, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. What I mean, yeah, that we just turned off for the listeners that can't hear. We had you had 2 big ass humidifiers going over here. Like,
We have 6
6
air purifiers in the house. Yes.
Whoa.
And we turned them off at turbo just for the podcast.
Just for this.
So it's not like continuous background jet takeoff sounds.
Well, yeah, the ambient noise level in here is a lot louder with 6 huge things going. But you know, the air quality was so bad. I didn't even know the scale went up to like 1300.
yeah,
but it was there for a couple
The
of
air
days.
quality index you're talking
Yeah,
about.
the air quality index.
yeah. I it's crazy. I mean, I've been since just in town since yesterday, and like just walking around like downtown Pasadena and stuff. If I didn't know about how massive this thing was, I might have just thought, oh, that's weird. The streets are a little messy.
Yeah, yeah.
But like
these-
There's crap everywhere still, yeah.
Are we
yeah, we are recording.
just checking? I thought we might still be just kind of shooting
yeah.
the.
Testing the microphone.
Testing
I mean, the podcast is literally shooting to shit.
Oh,
yeah,
right,
okay.
right.
And then I put it out for the world to listen to.
Oh,
so.
I forgot.
You were.
So
there was-
just like speaking about how much crap has blown down, though, I just went outside this morning, and I have a gardener that comes twice every week, and they put out a request now not to mow and blow. No blowing in particular. No leaf blowers because it's blowing the ash around, which is ostensibly toxic and contains, God only knows, whoever. Whatever the contents of the houses were that burned are now like littered all over the city
yeah.
because of ash falls and stuff. So they haven't been blowing, but they've been raking, and Kim and I have been cleaning up the yard for 2 weeks now, almost, and there's still the yard is still littered with leaves and ashes and crap, and we're still going to be putting out more and more stuff on the curb for the city to come pick up.
And this is after already, we've put out. I don't even know how to characterize
2 kind of car-sized piles of
2 car-sized
of
piles.
yard
and
waste
and that's
only.
just the big
It's
stuff.
just yard waste. Yeah.
That's not even the millions of sticks and leaves that are just blanketing, or the sticks are like arrows propelled into the crevices of things. I mean, it's crazy how much crap
and
fell
bins
off.
full of bins full of yard waste as well. So like we have the giant yard waste bins. Anyway, so that windstorm was the worst windstorm I've ever seen here. I've been here over 30 years.
Wow.
And there was a pretty bad one in, was it 2011 or when was that?
2011, yeah. We had the power was out for 3 days, but this was
And it broke
way
the
worse.
table in the back because like literally shattered the glass tabletop into like a bazillion little square pieces like safety glass. And other things happened, like there were trees down all over the streets and they knocked out the power and you couldn't drive anywhere. And
This was the one from 30 years ago.
that was in
It wasn't 30 years ago. It was 2011,
13 years
13.
ago, 14 years ago. And that was the worst I'd ever experienced, but this was way worse.
Yeah. So you've been in this house for how long? How many years?
20 since 97, so 28 years.
28 years. Okay. And I know we were at some point. It's funny because like a couple of years ago, we were talking about how you chose this specific neighborhood.
Oh yeah.
Like because we were walking around these neighborhoods and we were talking about it, and you were saying, yeah. And I remember you vaguely describing because of this, like the wind direction and like if there's floods or whatever. Can you touch on that real quick?
The background is that I'm an engineer and I think about things. I probably overthink a lot of things, but in particular, I found appealing about this particular house in this neighborhood that it's on the top of a very slight ridge. So, in the water flows like to the east and west on the street, and not like I'm not at the bottom of a gully or something.
Yeah.
So many houses and so many neighborhoods are in canyons that potentially could flood. And, I remember so many times really admiring the neighborhoods that were in the little foothill communities with the windy streets, the cute little windy streets, the lovely landscaping, the amazing views. And I so much wanted one of those houses, but somehow I think in the back of my head, I was like, this is actually not safe in California. And so I bought a house here in the, in the suburbs of Pasadena, that are about, maybe 4 miles from the foothills, closer to downtown Pasadena than to the forest. So, I don't recall if that was like very explicitly because it's far enough away from where the forest is that I would be safe from forest fires, but it wasn't not, you know what I'm saying? Because otherwise I really wanted to have a house in the hills with a beautiful view and all that. So anyway, that's probably what we were talking about.
Yeah. And it's like, so just, it's like yesterday morning when I was like doing my morning run in the area, and for listeners, like Altadena is like right next door from here. So like, could you see the flames from the house?
You could see an orange glow. We didn't see actual flames because they were not coming down the closest hillside to us. That was maybe you did. Did you see anything?
But also I was focused on what's going on here and now as we were trying to get ready to evacuate if we got the evacuation order. Like we were putting up our trailer and we were like packing our bags and all that.
I remember the way it felt to me was that basically we knew that there were going to be high winds that day. They'd been making a big deal about this on the news. But when you're in LA, you're used to there's fire and it's not here. It's not here in the city, or it's not here in an urban area. It's kind of out in the forest somewhere. And so all of your Midwestern relatives check in with you and say, "You doing okay in the fires?" And you're like, "Sure, I am," because they're 50 miles away. And I was ready to be kind of snide like that all day. And then I took a nap in the afternoon, and when I woke up, there was a fire basically 2 miles away.
Wow.
And that changed everything. And so I remember we were sitting right here at the table. We were looking at our computers and trying to figure out what was going on. We downloaded the Watch Duty app that moment.
Yeah, so what happened was that my coworker, he called me, which he hardly ever does in the evening, like 6 or 7, something like that. And he was like, "Phil, are you okay? We're just checking in on you. We want to make sure you're okay." And I said, "Yes. I mean, why? What is it that you're worried about?" And he said, "Oh, well, there's a fire in Altadena headed your way, and we have this Watch Duty app, and we're seeing that it's like extreme hazard and people are getting evacuated and this and that. And I'm like, okay, I don't know about this. So I downloaded this app and I turned it on, and sure enough, there was a evacuation warnings and orders and stuff. And shortly after that, we got the evacuation warning that our whole neighborhood was declared as an evacuation warning zone.
Right, and then so we could smell smoke inside the house. I was like, wow, I think I can smell this.
Yeah.
And we just kind of got a little bit, we transitioned fairly quickly into like accident, what I call accident time, which means that you're not thinking about your skincare routine, you know, you are in the here and now thinking about what you need to do at this moment, you know. And, you know, as you know, we're both Rangers.
Yeah.
Phil, especially because of his job, spends a lot of time thinking about what to do in emergency situations and when things go south. And I spent a lot of time in crisis stuff as a psychologist.
Yeah.
And we just kind of went into that mode. And then it was like, Phil, we haven't really thought about what we would do to evacuate. What do we have to do? Until we started thinking about that as a house, what we were going to do, and what we and making plans and seeing who we knew. And then people started texting us on Facebook. It was like, are you okay? Do you need anything? Do you need to come here? Yeah. The first person, we were like, yeah, that seems like a great idea. And then I wait there in the red zone too. And then, you know, an hour or two later, they're like, we're getting evacuated too. So maybe don't come here.
Yeah. So, you know, what happened with me, I thought was very interesting in hindsight to reflect on my response was, at some point, we got this notice that not only were we in the evacuation warning zone, but the neighborhood that's literally one block to the north of us, you know, upwind, got the evacuation order. So, like, literally that entire section of the city north of us, all the way from the east side of Pasadena to the west, was now under an evacuation order. So I was like, this is marching it down to us. And it was just, like, hard for me to comprehend where so far we're like 4 or 5 miles from the forest, right, from the mountains where the forest fire usually stays. And
we'd been, you know, of course, telling people for years, they're like, oh, no, this is not really a big fire zone.
We're not really at risk here, da-da-da-da. And so I was a little bit in shock or denial or something. I was finding myself like not sure what to do, having a very hard time getting motivated. And you know, luckily our roommate Brett was like, "Hey, we're getting these notices. Everybody had the app all installed now, and we were, you know." And he kind of requested that we have a house meeting, and we sorted out and figured out what the heck we're going to do. And so, you know, that kind of helped me get over that sort of shock and awe and feeling like I didn't know what to do or wasn't doing anything, which is very unusual for me. I'm usually on the spot with
I remember that,
like wanting to do something right away.
And you know what's interesting is that we do a lot of earthquake prep. But we didn't really have a fire plan.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So we had to kind of figure that out on the fly, and we were over there sitting in the living room all talking about this, and you know, it worked out very well. We're all calm in emergencies, which was nice. Nobody's running around
on like
screaming.
a much smaller scale. I'm kind of noting here how interesting it is that when you get like a group of people together, like one person is processing at a different speed, another person processing at a different speed, and like we need kind of everyone to come together to make a decision, make a plan. And so often a lot of like tragedies and be they physical tragedies or even like political tragedies, like whatever's happening in the world, so much of it has to do with who is where in their process.
Oh my God,
and when you
true.
come together to talk about it.
And there's not much you can really do about that, because you can't process faster because you ought to.
Right, just because it's an emergency.
You can, So, there was, at this point, the lights were still on. We have this pop-up trailer that has walls, and it's normally easily for a person to put up and down by one person, but in the high wind situation. And I want to say there was high winds. I mean, there was stuff blowing around here all day, and to the point where I was worried about the cats being outside, so I, of course, locked the cats in. And we all
like the cats could literally get blown away.
Yeah, they
or
could have
they
stuff
would be afraid and they'd run and hide and we'd never find them if we.
Or
had to
they could
evacuate,
literally have
right?
things fall on them.
Sure,
because there were branches falling down everywhere, and And
So you're like experiencing this whole freaking thing that's happening before the rest of us even learn that there's a massive fire. Like,
Yeah.
just the
the
windstorm
windstorm.
alone
the
was
windstorm alone was kind of crazy. I remember, before my nap and the fire started, I was on a call where I was like, I'm a little worried, and everybody else was like, I don't know, it seems kind of normal. But I was like, I don't know, this doesn't feel good.
And I just want to make sure we're clear what the heck we're talking about with the windstorm. These were high winds with 100-mile-plus gusts, right? So hurricane winds start at 105. Is that right, Kim? Didn't you used to live in
The
Florida?
hurricane winds started like 50,
50?
60.
Well, we were well into hurricane wind storm categories. Like, it literally broke a 6-inch branch off the tree and knocked it down on our back deck. And mind you, this is after I have pruned a lot of trees. We have quite a few trees on the property, and I've gone to a lot of effort over the last couple of years to prune off some of the bigger branches that were like leaning over and at risk of
luckily did a
blowing
huge
down
amount of
and
pruning
whatever.
this and that weekend before, which was
We
like
had this
so
giant
lucky.
cactus growing up the tree in the back, and I had been looking at that thinking, God, when it rains and when the winds come, that's going to be a humongous load on these branches. I better prune them. I finally got around to it the week before the wind. Yeah. Like literally saved probably those branches from.
But still,
falling on our deck.
there was like a piece of thing on the roof that like suddenly there was a loud crash, and what was that again? That's some
It was
kind of
the
cover.
for a solar hot water heater we have. It's a passive solar hot water heater, and it has a, I guess it's probably fiberglass, dual-walled fiberglass cover. It's about 4 feet by 8 feet or something, almost like the size of a piece of plywood, like a sheet of plywood.
Yeah,
It
there was a
literally
huge
blew
crash,
off the roof.
and there it was on the stairs, and I was like,
Yeah.
Phil, I don't know what this thing is, but it's on the stairs now.
Wow. So this is interesting. As you're describing this, it's really landing for me. Like watching people, on social media who are like not even anywhere in California, right?
Yeah.
And like having all kinds of like angry judgments about like the
they're
politics and stuff here, right?
Utterly ridiculous.
Also, stupid opinions that are
Stupid
that are,
opinions.
like,
I mean-
probably fanned by whoever.
Yeah.
Russian,
People really want to like.
disinformation campaigns about how we should all be angry at each other here in the U.S.
People want to have these explanations of like, well, it must be the way the liberals are managing things in California that cause all these fires. And it's like, if you were here, there's no way you would say that, because this was a weird weather event. This was these winds are 30-mile-an-hour gusts are bad enough. This is something else entirely.
What was that? Kind of historic. I don't remember ever hearing the winds exceeding 100 miles an hour in Pasadena.
No.
Yeah.
Never heard
No,
of that.
hardly in California.
Also,
the top of Mount Whitney, maybe.
FYI, for those listening that are far away, the fire started in the National Forest, okay? National Forest. It is managed by the U.S. government. So it wasn't some, failure of liberals to properly manage our freaking forest or whatever. No, this was a national problem.
Yeah.
It happened at it's a national tragedy.
And the wind was like, it's what I'm processing is that it spread so rapidly. Like there's no way it could have been stopped. Like even if you have enough technology and water pressure, like
no, because also, I mean, first of all, the technology, a lot of it is dropping water and other stuff on it from above. You
Right.
cannot fly anything in 100-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah.
Period.
You can fly a helicopter with
Period.
100-mile-an-hour gusts. And what you don't know, I mean,
Never even
if
thought
you've
about
not
that.
experienced these Santa Ana winds, which we call them Santa Ana.
The ones that come off the
come
desert.
from the northwest, and they come from the northeast,
Mm.
and they normally blow southwest. And in this particular windstorm, they were coming from directly north, which is very unusual. Apparently, I've never heard of that, but they said it is once in a while these wind patterns can develop that where they come directly from the north, blowing directly south, and that did actually, I think, make it a little harder for the firefighters to deal with because they
And-
hadn't
and
prepared
also-
as much for the northerly
And also that
winds.
really blows it into the areas that are populated because there's the mountains directly north and then the hillside communities right below that. And that's normally kind of protected because things would be a little bit more
Yeah.
east to west. And if you look at like the pattern of burn things, you can really see the way the wind patterns are in terms of what gets destroyed and how the fire will hop over things. There is the houses that were destroyed that were closest to us. You can see there was a big hop where there was fire over here, and then a period where it was no fire
Yeah.
on the ground, and clearly the embers came up and over into a new area, burned 8 buildings there, and that could have easily kept on hopping down into our
When I
street.
when I started texting you said Landy had like literally caught an ember that was coming at the house.
Yes, we literally I was telling the story of we were all going out to put the to fold down the pop-up trailer.
Yeah.
It was going to take 4 people this time because of the high winds.
We want to make sure there's one person on each corner so that
So-
it doesn't blow away.
Right, and so as we were trooping out there, here comes a big ember that just drifting into our consciousness out in front and onto the ground. The ground is of course strewn with leaves and sticks. I mean, it's full of fire things. And Landy immediately, our other roommate Landy, just sees it and stamps it out right there. And I was like, well, if we hadn't been outside at that moment,
That would have hit.
She saw it, but I couldn't see it because I had a headlamp on. And
I-
she said, "Look at that thing right there." And I'm like, "What are we looking
no, I
at?"
saw it come down
You
like
saw it?
this.
I didn't see it come down.
Yeah.
Then I realized when I wasn't shining the light on it that it was a leaf or something that was burning.
It was a
Literally
burning object.
Yeah.
It was an on-fire object.
And if that had landed in any one of the piles of leaves that are
It
around-
landed on the driveway, but the driveway was also covered in leaves. So
Yeah, I just want to say, for those people that somehow assert that all these houses burned down because they hadn't properly maintained their landscaping or something stupid like that,
That is
I can
insane.
tell you, we had literally, I don't know, cubic yards of leaves, dead leaves and branches and yard waste that blew onto our property from the wind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
I mean,
was not
there's
there
no
before. Like,
yeah.
I can't, no amount of maintenance is going to stop that from happening, right? So that's what I'm talking about. Like,
Yeah.
this is a phenomenon that no preparation could have prevented.
Wow.
In my assessment, I mean, I'm not,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how that you could possibly prevent that.
I want to also call out another thing. This was, first of all, this is a house full of burners, right? Like
We like preparedness.
yeah. And then, like as you're describing all of that, and by the way, 3/4 of you are Rangers.
Yeah.
Brett has extensive experience with event production and like physical environments, you know. So like it's like this is a well prepared house, right? As far as like personality types.
I have like 6 fire extinguishers in the house, by
Yeah.
the way.
Right.
Yeah.
Staged by the
Engineer.
in the kitchen, by the front door, the back door,
crisis
by the garage
organizational
door.
psychologist. What is Landy's? What is Landy's?
Letty's a wildlife biologist. She
Yeah.
basically lives up where the forest fires are. All
Yeah.
we're taking care of the animals.
This
all
is
of
a
them.
well prepped team who has spent multiple years on Playa where we have dealt with insane winds and
Yes.
we
Yeah.
know how to knock things down because things turn into missiles and darts.
Phil and Landy were there for Mudburn.
Yeah.
They both flourished.
No, so this is the part that's hitting me right now. This is a well prepped house. Most people have not been to Burning Man for a decade. Like the level of things that just even the thought to go out there and like put things down and tie things down and get all 4 of you because the wind's higher and then catching the ember. There's so many little tiny things that we have some preparation for because of the experiences we've had on Playa as a team, by the way, not just alone. Like if one of you had done it,
yeah.
you're trying to explain to the other person what wind is like, but immediately everybody was like prepared and you knew how to navigate this environment because you've had some frame of reference.
Right. And
Most of the city has not.
And on top of that, we have frame of reference. So we have a good friend who dropped by. She'd been evacuated, and while she was here, she discovered that she had lost her house. So that was a lot. But the ranger training, the green dot training.
Yeah.
Everybody immediately kind of went into action and figured out what she needed and dealt with all that too. So the mental crisis, and let me tell you, that was the way you think it might have been was the way it was. It was a lot. It was a lot
She
for
came-
everybody.
She's like, Phil, do you have any whiskey? And I said, sure, I got a bottle of whiskey. And I brought out this bottle of whiskey, and she proceeded to drink nearly half a bottle of whiskey by herself.
So we put her to bed, and then we, helped her do whatever
so
she
her
needed to
coping
do.
mechanism was to get completely hammered.
It was whiskey and crying the first day, and then the next day she made different choices. But again, as Rangers, we are. This is not a problem, right?
Yeah. No, that's spot on. Because
Yeah.
for our listeners, this show is like, burners listening to this.
Yeah.
So we're used to it. We're like, oh, you're having a meltdown. Let's take care of you. And then we're also going to go tie down something so they don't fly away.
Yeah, exactly.
Again,
I mean, it's straight up.
most people do not have that training.
Yeah. Yeah.
The average citizen does not have that experience, and then a lot of times you might be like the one guy in the house who's got some of that training, and then
And they
like
have
the
to
other
do
people,
everything.
and they're somebody else is melting down, and then now other people are melting down because this person's melting down. So the
Yeah,
simple
there was
fact-
none of that.
Yeah.
She called us. We made reference to the apocalypse team being pretty good here, and she was like, "Yes, you guys are my apocalypse team." And she came back yesterday and brought us some cookies and was like, "This is thank you to my apocalypse team."
Oh, those are the cookies I've been eating.
Yeah. Well, so here's the deal. She has high blood pressure, and she's medicated for that. But she lost her meds in the fire, and so she hadn't gotten, that had not been on her top of her list of things to deal with, and so she was unmedicated and under a huge amount of stress, and she basically had a health collapse, and she had to go get like emergency care because her blood pressure was spiking, and anyway, so her friend then proceeded to send her 7 pounds of homemade cookies, and she's like, I can't eat all these cookies. I gotta go find someone to help me deal with them. So that's why she brought them over. But also, she did get on her meds, and she was feeling much better.
Yeah, she was looking pretty good.
Yeah.
The funny thing also is that the next day she stayed with us for the next day, and a lot of people came in and out to give her comfort during the day, which was great. But everybody brought food. And I thought this was kind of hilarious
And, like,
because first of
ridiculous
all,
amounts
like
of food,
insane
too.
amounts, like they went to Costco.
Costco and got like 6 or 8 grocery bags full of food, including a lot of.
I'm just going to admit, I was freaking out because I'm like, if this keeps up, where are we going to put all
this? Do with
this?
all this food?
I was like looking into borrowing a refrigerator because what are we going to do with all of this? But then I think that, the food delivery stopped.
What we didn't mention it. Kim and I are both Green Dots, Green Dot Rangers, right? So we have training specifically to deal with people in crisis and having emotional disturbances and so on. So our coping mechanism was not to just give her tons of food. But apparently...
It's such a human impulse, though. I get it. I mean, I really get it.
Okay, and many of her friends, like their first response was, "Oh, our friend just lost everything. We'll bring her a ton of food, and she'll be all right for a while until she gets on her feet or whatever."
Yeah, but I think it's just a very human thing to want to do that. I mean, at that point, all I wanted to do too, I just wanted to cook comfort food. I was like, "Can I feed you? Can I feed you? Can I feed you?" I always felt the same way.
Yeah.
About everybody. I made like a giant mac and cheese because that was like the best thing I could think of to do.
I may have gained a few pounds since this fire. Just FYI.
Oh my gosh. So okay, so this whole this was like a week that this is playing out. How many days was this container?
It's hard to say because again
We're
we were
still
not
in it.
sleeping
Right.
and we're still in it.
Right. That's what I mean. Like
And it's been 2 weeks practically now.
Yeah.
It is 2 weeks from Tuesday. I think,
We were on high alert for probably a good 2 or 3 days because they didn't reduce our the Ready Set Go system, which is like get ready to go, get set to go, go. We were on set for like 3 days. Yeah. And so that meant that like it could change.
You're talking
at
about the
any
fire
point.
warnings.
The fire
The fire
warnings.
warnings,
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, that's
And
answering
so
the question.
we were pretty much on high alert for about 2.5, 3 days.
The fire was on Tuesday, and the alert for the
It was Tuesday
evacuation
night.
warning for our neighborhood was not lifted until Friday night.
Yeah.
What is that, like
So we were kind of on high alert. It wasn't really until after that we sort of relaxed a little bit and unpacked a little bit. But then after that, that's when all the feelings started because we were just before just sort of on emergency time, which is like might have to go do a whole bunch of things. Can't really bother feeling anything
Yeah.
right now. And so as soon as after that lifted, that's when everybody got sad and mad and depressed and antsy and everything else like that. And so we were all just kind of raw for a few days. And that's when everybody was processing, when I noticed everybody really processing differently, because before we were just pulling together to make sure that everybody could be safe and get out of here if they needed to.
Yeah, and running on some adrenaline, I imagine.
So much adrenaline. Phil stayed up that whole night, pretty much. That Tuesday night, you're going to defend the house.
I don't know if I got more than an hour or two of sleep because there was a new alert coming through on the app like every 15 minutes.
Oh
it
yeah,
seemed like,
and
or
some of that
something.
was new fires in LA County. So they're going to tell you about that. Some of that was our fire.
Well, we
Yeah.
didn't know when we were going to get the evacuation order. Like
Yeah.
that was like literally one block north of here, and they're a short block. There's only like 3 houses in that block.
So Phil's out there with
that was where
the hose.
order
Yeah.
was.
And
Yeah, so
I kind of fell asleep a little bit, but I had to use every trick I know to get my nervous system to calm down, just so I could do that, because I was both exhausted and couldn't think, and also just really feeling like really scared. I've never been that scared in my life.
God, I mean, my heart was obviously already like breaking for everybody who like lost everything.
Yeah.
You know, that's how could you not like? But just hearing all of this and like really connecting again, like how. I mean, I don't know how else to put it, like how blessed we are to have had the experiences that we've had, to
Yeah.
have the community that we have, to have the training, because everything you're describing, this is all stuff like that's, going through adrenaline, having to stay up all night, all this stuff. Like we've had some training on all this.
Yeah.
with
Again,
adversity.
Yeah.
most people don't. Most people
Yeah,
are.
it's
Most people
true.
are really going through it in a way that like and like just the way that
Yeah.
you're describing the processing of it and all that. Like that's really something else. Like I'm really truly like appreciating what
Yeah.
it is to have what we have, like our community, our crew, our experiences, like,
Yeah.
and to be able to like and to be able to like even laugh about it morbidly, right?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in gallows humor. So.
Yeah. We got to get through it. We get through it. Put some fucking ply on it, and get to the next thing. What's I think like. So like, what's next right now? Like, I know Kim, you've been like running around, like doing like volunteer work in the neighborhood, like
Freelance volunteer work.
volunteer work.
Instead of working with a crew, I hear about a need and I try to go do something about it.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep that up. We have another friend from out of town who's dealing with their mom, who's here, and I'm gonna. They're coming shortly after you leave. They will arrive,
Oh, wow.
so they'll stay with us for a day or two.
Well, his mom is aging, and she evacuated when she got the order or warning, whichever it was. And so thankfully her house was spared, but she's still not back. And I think
There's
it
a lot
may
of there's a
still not
lot of
be safe.
complication. It
probably
may not
has
be
to
safe.
get cleaned and all that
That's
stuff.
the cleaning
Fire,
is really what we're in right now,
smoke
because
and ash and dust and all that, and we're
Beca-
figuring out if we have to do that too.
we don't know if we have to. We don't know how toxic this dust is. I mean, everybody assumes that you have to assume that it's kind of toxic, and
Right.
and as Landy will tell you, there's been a lot of fallout from other fires in California where people would have problems based on the toxicity for years later. So we would obviously like to head that off.
Yeah.
But nobody really knows. Like, for example, our friend's house, our friend's mother's house, no smoke damage. Is it habitable? We don't know. They don't know. The industrial hygienists are all over the place. And at the same time, there's a ton of scams. I mean, we've gotten a lot of people coming by saying, basically wanting to get insurance money to do various things. Probably not.
Which means reminds me, I have to call my insurance broker, agent, whatever she is, today, and find out. Okay, what's the protocol? We have been advised that we may have smoke damage. We may have a lot of ash in the house that's toxic, and they want to test it, and they say, "Oh, well, you need to file a claim, and don't worry, we'll take care of all the paperwork for you." But how do I know whether that's real or whether it's just basically somebody taking advantage of the situation?
And that's going to be a really big deal around here. I know that there's out in Altadena, there's all these signs of like Altadena's not for sale, and that's because there's a lot of people going around just trying to get some cheap property. And it's like, hey, I'll just give you cash for it right now. And fire sale prices.
So there's also conspiracy theories that these fires were started intentionally by some deep state bad actors, or God only knows who
Oh
the
my God.
frickin' hell it is, that because they want to get the land and they want to build, apartments and force everybody into apartments and not allow you to have a single family home anymore, and blah 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 blah, all this stuff. And it reminds me, so our friend that stayed here overnight, when she got evacuated and then found out that her house was gone. Well, we didn't know the day after the fire that her house was burnt. There was no way to find out except to go there. So she said, I'm going to go up and see if the house is there. And I said, well, I want to go with you. And her daughter came, and our roommate, Landy. We all jumped in her car and we went up there, and there was a sheriff barricade, but she had her ID. They let us in. We drove up there, and as soon as we started getting to where the fire was, it was just getting worse and worse. For people that haven't been to Altadena, it's a beautiful neighborhood with all these
Really
lovely
gorgeous.
old homes, early 20th century homes, like craftsman style,
And
some
trees, huge trees.
Victorians,
They're
big
constantly
trees everywhere.
It's
filming.
it's a
large
postcard.
lots.
They're constantly
It is a
filming
postcard.
up there.
Yeah.
People are always filming up there.
Yeah.
It was a gorgeous neighborhood, and I was just at, we started going up Fair Oaks, I think it was, or Marengo, and in the past, it's just like that was like the vision that I had of how lovely it would be to live in Altadena, in one of those big, beautiful old craftsman homes with, nice eaves and a fireplace and all the forest around it. And but now it's all burnt down. Like all the big, beautiful houses that were up there were just piles of smoking rubble, and the chimney was standing there, like maybe leaning a little bit, like it was about to fall down. The natural gas pipelines, there was still like flames here and there where the gas pipes had ruptured, and the gas was still coming out and still burning. And then we turned on Mariposa, and I was like, I have got to take a video of this. And so I took a couple of videos driving all the way down Mariposa, where she was looking to find a way to turn up to get up to her street, which is Loma Alta, which is like the last main street before the forest. Well, so I got a
It's
couple
all
of
burnt
videos.
out, and
We
we shared
tried
them.
to
And they're
turn
kind
up-
of viral, actually.
We tried to turn up one of these streets, and there was like the power poles were literally on fire. One of them was burned through like 75-80%. It was only like a 2x4 or a 4x4 left holding it up. Maybe it was just the wires holding it up. There was downed power lines, and we finally said, we cannot go up there. You got to stop, turn around. There was emergency vehicles. There was smoke everywhere. I mean, it was like a war scene. It was like literally a war scene. So we went back, and I got more video on Mariposa as we were trying to find another way up. So I posted this video that afternoon at like 5:30 or something. Well, it has 7,600 views now. I was just looking at it this morning before we started the recording, and I noticed one of my friends, she posted something like, or another friend posted something like, and what I had noticed in this 1.5-minute video, there was only 2 houses that remained out of all the houses that were there.
Yeah.
And they were like these 2 rather modest stucco houses, single floor, built later than most of the other ones. So for whatever reason, there's less places for fire to get in the house, or there's stucco or whatever. They had survived. And then somebody said, I see one of the ones that survived is blue. And I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? Then another person posts, it was the dews. Might have been the dews.
The dews.
The dews. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like dew, like moisture condensing from the air when it cools and gets on the house and somehow prevents the fire from starting? I'm like, there was no dew. These are like in 100-mile-an-hour winds, right? I mean, no dew is going to condense. And I asked her, what does she mean? I was wondering if it was a misspelling. Did I get it wrong? Do I not know what she's talking about? So I just noticed this morning she had come back and said, no, it's the directed energy weapons. DEW, capital DEW, are directed energy weapons, because you asked, and I'm reading that comment right now. Their frequency is blind to the color blue. Blue umbrellas, houses, roofs, and cars all unscathed indicate the possibility these devices were involved. So I'm like, this is what I'm talking about, the kind of conspiracy theories that people are dreaming up about how, just because they saw a blue house, probably somebody was like, I don't know, is it Jewish space lasers? I mean, who is it that's using directed energy weapons
It's
to
Altadena.
burn Altadena to the ground?
No,
Like,
it's such
what
a
the
Altadena is a
hell?
very strategic target. Let me tell you.
So I'm like,
we're done.
Really? That's what you're commenting on? Okay, please. What's the website? So I asked her, what's the website where this is explained so I can go educate myself?
You're going down that rabbit hole, Phil.
Oh God!
See what she
Do not
comes
go down.
back with, but
Meanwhile, while we are talking, I'm getting a voice message from a close friend of mine in Camarillo who said, "Well, we just got evacuated because there's a fire outside campus, and we had to argue with this is Cindy Sherman. We had to argue with law enforcement to be able to go get our cats because we happened to be outside at the time.
Oh my God, that's insane.
So it's nonstop,
it's not over.
and
It's not over. Yeah.
and this is kind of what we've been dealing with. While we were on high alert, it's just constantly, here's a new one, here's a new one, here's a new one, here's a new one. And, yesterday it was somebody else. And,
Well, the Hearst fire and your collaborator on
my
your
writing partner
project
is up
getting
there.
evacuated now.
And it's basically like I said, usually the fires are not where you are and not where anybody is.
Yeah.
And this time they are everywhere, and they're definitely everywhere. They're not everywhere, but there's a lot of they're spread out. The LA basin here is vast. It would be like the whole tri-state area in New York, basically.
It's
and if you imagine that, like Connecticut, New Jersey, and New York are all on fire.
Yeah. No, it's occurring to me, like the visual that's landing for me now that I'm here, like looking at it. It's like a tsunami.
Yeah.
That just happens to be made of a different element. Yeah. And I think, like, thinking about it in terms, and I was even guilty of this. Like, I didn't think that it was able. I was listening to the science and stuff. I wasn't saying that it could be put out, but I was in Vegas and I was looking at it from a distance, and I'm just like texting friends to see if they're okay, right? Yeah. And from there, my mind was still processing it as like a fire that you send the fire department to put out, but it just happens to be a lot bigger. And it's the opposite. This is like a tsunami made of flames that you're trying to maybe pull some people out of.
Yeah, exactly. You're trying to not get hit by the pier that has detached itself.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say they were doing what they could to fight the fire, as best I can tell. Like,
absolutely.
They were using all the water pressure that was available. Like, some people were saying, "Oh, we went to turn on the water to hose down the house before we left or got evacuated or whatever, and there's just no water coming out." Well, that's because the fire department was using all the water, probably somewhere else, to fight the edge of the fire as it was encroaching in the city. But we don't know. I mean, the app has a lot of information, but one of the things is, like, how many firefighters are assigned to that fire? Well, last I looked, there was like 3,500 firefighters assigned to this Eaton fire, and probably well more than that on the Palisades fire. And then these other fires that are cropping up now, well, probably some of the staffing has been sent over to those other fires. But, this has been going on for a couple of weeks now. That Palisades fire started even before this Eaton fire. So...
You guys,
the Palisades fire started like early in the day. It started at like 10 a.m. in the 10 o'clock hour, and then the Eaton fire didn't start until like 6.
The afternoon.
So all the firefighters were there.
And y'all have a friend. I don't know if are they all burners? I think I read that they're out there like supporting the firefighters and helping them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Efren and RV Pirate Relief, I think it's called.
RV Pirate Relief.
Yeah, so they rent RVs as RV Pirates, Efren and Ingrid, and then they have a wing of their business that is relief, because they go around to various areas that need help, and they've been doing this with different disasters. I think it started in Puerto Rico in their hurricane a number of years ago.
That's really sweet. So
they've been organizing donations, and they've been kind of just filling in the cracks where if say, for example, there's firefighters who are still up there in the fire who were sleeping in their cars, and it was really cold. And so getting them some blankets and hand warmers and stuff
Cooking
like
equipment,
that. Cooking
and
equipment.
snacks, like quality snacks, like
Yeah.
high calorie,
High-calorie
high
snacks.
protein snacks, not just junk food.
And-
He's been putting out, he put out like a whole request on Facebook for all the things that were like most
Yeah,
needed.
these
and
guys are doing
they
amazing
have
work.
a warehouse. They're like getting all these volunteers, receiving all the donations, and then categorizing them and sorting them and taking them to where they're needed most. Like, he has literally just jumped into volunteer action. It's fantastic.
And I just want to say this is all going to go on for a while because people are going to have continued needs. This is not like a weekend we're done here.
Yeah,
this is going to be months and years.
It's going to have aftershocks for quite some time. No, this is the fallout from this is going to be affecting us as a society.
Oh,
for,
yeah.
for decades to come, for sure.
Absolutely, because this is like, many billions of dollars worth of displacement.
Yeah, let's make sure to link to them. By the way, in the
We'll
in the
link,
show
link
notes
to their
promote that.
relief, and there's a lot of burners who are affected in Altadena who have lost their houses. I've heard about a lot of them.
Yeah,
There's some master GoFundMe lists, which has like a list of everybody who's got a GoFundMe because
link
of
to
the
that.
fires.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that needs to be done, and there's a lot you can do. And it may not be, like giving people your old sweatshirts, because honestly, where are people going to put all this stuff? They need housing.
yeah.
But I think that will be new ways that our community can come together to help out the people who have been affected in so many different ways.
Yeah. It's funny as you're describing the firefighter thing. The thought that popped into my head is when we're like on Playa and it's like, I don't know how many hours to gate, and we're trying to get this art project up before gates open, and we're just like on a marathon of staying up, and I really, really want to go to bed and rest, and like my teammates are telling me to go rest so I can get more energy, but it's really hard to like convince myself to do that because everybody else is like out there, right before sunrise. And now like I'm like multiply that over the course of many days and dealing with the biggest fire ever, and there is no fun escape. There's no let's go do whiskey shots. Like you're sleeping in your car, regrouping just enough energy to get back out there.
Yeah,
And
I
do
think
that.
that's pretty much exactly what's happening.
That is massive.
Yeah,
All right.
So I'm just going to call that friend of ours, the burner that is doing the volunteer coordinating. His name is Efrain, Efrain, Vega, Vega, Day, De, Varona, Varona. Pretty sure he's the only Efrain Vega de Verona on Facebook. So look him up. Give him some props if you got anything to donate. I'm sure they're still taking donations, or if you want to volunteer, hit him up.
Yeah. I like that. Thank you for sharing the story. I'm so happy. Philtopia. Where we are is Philtopia, by the way. This is how it's called.
Yeah.
So happy it's still up. It's been, my spiritual home.
Yeah, it's
But yeah, no, we're going to share all these links. I super appreciate you sharing the story. And yeah, it's going to continue. So, love you all.
Thanks, Raj.
Thank you.
You too. Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. There's our amazing conversation with Kim and Phil. All these links, everything we talked about on this episode, it's all going to be in the show notes. I just wanted to wrap today's episode by sharing this favorite story of mine that I've always I was thinking about this the entire time that they were that I was talking to Kim and Phil, and I had to share this one that I share pretty often, and it's from the year that I camped with Burners Without Borders on Playa at Burning Man, and I want to say it was like 2017, 2018. I can't remember right now, but anyway, Burners Without Borders, for those of you who are not familiar, started in like the whole thing started I think in 2005. It was a bunch of burners got together to go and help with disaster relief with Hurricane Katrina, and I guess it went so swimmingly that then they moved to Mississippi and helped with disaster relief there, and like the whole movement really just picked up because we're all basically out in the playa preparing for the apocalypse. Like it's a regular common joke at Burning Man that Burning Man is basically like the most fun and efficient FEMA training camp that you could possibly put together. And so Burners Without Borders kind of picked up, and then more chapters popped up around the country and around the world where different crews of burners got together and said like, yeah, we can help with things because we've been practicing this. And then so flash forward, I'm at Burners Without Borders, the camp, which is on Playa, and that is the camp. The crew that runs the camp is kind of like, I guess, Burners Without Borders proper, Burners Without Borders official. They are a lot of them mostly based out of Chicago. And Christopher Breedlove is kind of the face of Burners Without Borders. I believe his title is program director. I'm not sure. I should have looked this up before telling you the story. But that's basically the story. I've actually sat with Christopher Breedlove on a previous episode of this podcast, and I'll link to it in the show notes. So anyway, I'm camped with Burners Without Borders. And, as for those of you who have been to Black Rock City, who have made the pilgrimage home, the experience that the part of the surrealness of the experience is how disconnected we feel from what's going on in the outside world. And the internet connections, especially even back then, were working even less than they are now. I mean, now they're not totally reliable, but they're starting to show up more. But anyway, so we're out there, and we hear that the hurricane had touched down in Texas. And hurricane in Texas 2017. I just paused the recording to look it up, and I'd forgotten. It's actually poetically, it was called Hurricane Harvey. So Hurricane Harvey, of course, like landed in Texas and caused devastation. And we were on Playa, I want to say like it was like day 2 or 3. I remember we were still building. I don't remember if the gates had opened yet, but a bunch of us gather in the front lobby of the Burners Without Borders camp, and someone from the Burners Without Borders crew, who's kind of like coordinating, comes in to kind of give us an update on what's been happening with the hurricane out in Texas. And we're listening to the story, and this is the story that he shared, which left just a massive grin on my face. He said, he explained to us that apparently in these kind of situations, when there is a disaster, oftentimes the first boots on the ground in that situation is disappointingly the insurance adjusters. Like a lot of times, like FEMA hasn't made it out yet. All these, communities haven't gathered and rallied yet. But you know who shows up? The guys who have to figure out who's paying for all this. And in a more pessimistic standpoint, how to deny those claims. So anyway, that was an interesting thing that I learned, even though I have in a previous life, I was an insurance agent. We won't talk about that right now. Insurance adjusters are some of the first people on the ground in massive disasters like this. And apparently, a crew of these guys were out there surveying the damage, and they stumble across the Burners Without Borders camp that had set up in the middle of all this. They already had their shade structure up. It was a crew of people hanging out. They'd had their little kitchen set up, and they had their feet kicked up, and they were having a beer. Like they'd already done all that. And these insurance adjusters walk up, kind of gobsmacked, like, what the fuck are you guys doing here? There's nobody here yet. None of the teams are here. FEMA's nobody's here yet. And somehow these crew of burners had already gotten all set up and were literally taking a break because that's how far ahead of everybody else they were. And I fucking love that story so much. We were laughing and just absolutely delighted, and it just so hammered home for me the importance of finding not just the silver lining in difficult experiences, but like really leaning into, as insane as this might sound, the joy of it, to some extent, the leaning into the full catastrophe of what the experience is. And I think like that really is, to me, that's the most magical thing about our community. All right, well, there it is. Yeah, usually I read like the outro part over here, but gosh, I feel like I've blabbed enough. The Burner Podcast theme song is by Joe Man. He's out of Austin, Texas. Burner Podcast is produced by a revolving team of amazing volunteers, blah, 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 yada, yada. All the links to everything are over at burnerpodcast.com. We're independently produced. Okay, yeah, anyway, that's it. We're going to get some more. We're going to definitely get you more episodes this year. That part, I promise you. So until next time, love, light, and all that other crap.
3 days in the desert fun, I was looking at a riverbed, and the story it told of a river that flowed made me sad to think it was dead. You see, I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no pain.
burnerpodcast.com.